Welcome everybody to this live stream, and today it's all about writing for animation. Here's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna start working on an animated short film. I haven't done a personal project in over 5 years now, and I felt like it's about time that I do one, that I finally get some of the ideas out of my head and start animating. So I wanted to start working on an animated short film personal project, and I will do every step of the production live. And you're watching the first live stream of this series right now. And along the way, I will tell you everything I know about every aspect of filmmaking. And there will be live streams that are focusing more on writing, on the story, on storyboarding, animatics. And then there will be some where we'll be actually animating and doing post-production, doing project planning, all this stuff. Every aspect will have a live stream where I tell you exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. That is kind of the more important question that can hopefully help you to make your own films. I'm going to tell you all the guidelines that I have learned from professionals that either taught me or that I've talked to at conferences, or that I had the great honor and privilege of working with. And I hope that you will be able to use what you learn to make your own film, and then I'm able to inspire you to just start making your own film as well. I'm not sure how tight I will schedule this. I think I will try to live stream once a week. So at least during that time, I'll be working on the short film. But I don't know, maybe it will take 3-4 months. Maybe it will take a year until the film is done. But I hope that with you together, we can continuously working on this and exchange some knowledge, maybe have some discussions if we disagree on something. I'm really looking forward to this. Topic of this live stream is writing. And I actually wanted to make a table of content. I kind of forgot about that. It's gonna be all about how to construct and refine your story today. Before you even animate anything, before you even draw anything, you could do this completely dry, just with words, and it would be very important first step. Of course, especially in storytelling, there are different tastes and different ideas of what storytelling should be and how storytelling should be done. But the things that I'm showing you today are things that have worked for me. And I think what's also important, we should always be focusing on, how will the audience perceive this? Will it work with the audience? But sometimes, you have a commercial project and you have to deliver. You have to make a project. You have to get done. And then it can be very handy to know some tools and structures that you can then use to get your story done and working very quickly, very efficiently. Today is not going to be the most visually exciting episode because it will be a lot about writing. It will be me talking about writing. And in the end, we will also write a script. If you wanted to see me animating, today we're not going to get to that. We're not going to get to that for a while. But I nevertheless, storytelling is super important because it's the foundation of every good film. And audiences love a good story and relatable characters, which are kind of connected to having a good story, which, if you have good characters, it's easier to tell a good story, I guess is what I want to say. So part 1 of this live stream will be an online lesson. This is kind of what we already started. where I just present my findings, my ideas, my tips to you. And then in part 2, I just gonna work on the script and we hang out together, can discuss some questions about animation and storytelling and all this good stuff. Yeah. So I wanted to do a table of contents so you know what to expect. We're gonna talk about project phases, what you should do in what phase of the story development, what you should focus on, or what you could focus on to make the process more streamlined and actually end in having a good story rather than just having a bunch of ideas, loose ideas. We're gonna talk about the hero's journey a little bit, about the beats that your story needs to have to work as a story, to be perceived as appealing and interesting, and as like, I want to know how it ends. I want to know what happens. That is what a good story structure can do for you. They can pull the viewers in. We gonna talk about, well, besides from the general structures, we're gonna talk about some loose concepts and tricks that I've learned over the years that you should be thinking about. These are just some tricks and terms that you should have heard, I think. And we're also going to talk about script writing software, just very, very superficially on the basic level, because scripts are written in a certain way. If you apply for a film fund or work with a professional production company, your script has to look a certain way. We're going to have a look at how your script has to look and what software you could use to write a script and have a good-looking script. And then after we've written the beats of my story, we're going to write the script for my story, which is going to be interesting because there's no talking character except for maybe a narrator in this story, which will make a kind of unusual script, but I figured I wanted to demonstrate it to you anyways. Okay, so that's the plan for today. Let me know in the comments if this sounds interesting to you and what you are especially interested in. I'd love to hear your reaction for today's plan. I actually have to open the chat again to have a look at it. Oh yeah, I'm now looking at the YouTube chat mostly. I also have a look at the Twitch chat. But yeah, so what do people say? Hey JK, great to see you in the live stream, that you're in the audience. How do I play my animation shots? I will get to that later. Somebody's saying they're starting their first short film. All right. Planning is the best way to start an animation shot. I agree, Pedro. Ready to get started. Let's do it. All right. All sounds interesting and relevant. I'm very happy about that. All right. Okay, then I'll jump right into it. Let's put the chat right here. Nah, I can't see it anymore, but maybe that's good. Because I probably just gonna, so I'm not interrupted all the time. I'm gonna do my lecture or a portion of the lecture, and then I will answer questions afterwards, because I feel like if I'm constantly looking at the chat, I'm gonna get distracted. Yeah, I had a few problems with my internet connection today. If the internet cuts out, I'm just gonna continue, and I have a recording running here. And yeah, then worst case, you will have to listen to the stuff afterwards. But it's hopefully gonna be fine. All right, let's get started. So, in my case, and what I'm not talking about that much because it's a whole big topic on its own, how to generate ideas. In my case, I already have an idea for the short film that I wanted to make. I even have a couple of scenes and things that I want to happen in my head. So we're gonna skip over this this part a little bit, but just so you know, there are brainstorming techniques that can help you to generate a lot of ideas in very little time. One of my favorite methods to generate ideas is, and you best do that in a group with multiple people. Everybody gets a big post-it note pad, and make sure it's fresh. Lots of post-its, and if you really have no idea at all, like, it can help if you have like a basic idea, like I want to do something in space, science fiction, or I want to do a Western, or or I have this character, this superhero, I want to make a superhero film. It can help to have like a rough guidance, but you could also make a brainstorm about just generating those ideas. What could it be? So the technique works like this. Everybody in the room, you should do this with a couple of people, like 3 to 10 people would be wonderful if you have some friends to help you. You set yourself a time limit of like 2 minutes, I think is good. And everybody has to write as many ideas as they possibly can. And it's important in this phase not to censor yourself. I like to call this phase, this first phase of a project, the collecting phase. And it has to be a wild collection. It's important that you don't overthink things at this time. It's important that you don't censor yourself and think like, this is stupid, we're not going to do this, this is too much work. Do not think that way. It's very important that in this first phase, in this brainstorming first, you're just collecting. You're gonna sort later. You're gonna funnel the ideas until you have the best idea later. But for phase 1, it's important that you collect. So on the post-its, you just write anything that pops to your head. That can be water, teddy bears, spaceship crash. Just anything that comes to your mind, and just don't stop until the time is over. And then you can put up all the ideas that all of you have generated on a wall or windows. Windows are always great for this because, on walls you have like pictures hanging, you have your house decorated, but windows often still have some space. So you can put the post-it on the window and then collect what speaks to you. And then maybe this is already enough to have a rough idea, like I'm going to do a cowboy in space. And just a handful, like 3-4 post-it notes are your guide for the next round. You're going to start over. Everybody's going to start over writing stuff on the post-it notes, this time thinking about, okay, what could happen to a cowboy in space? You're going to have space horses, I don't know. You're just going to start collecting, like spaceship rodeo and stuff like that. And then you do as many of these as you want. The next pass could be, okay, what happens in Act 1? What is the starting position? Where do my characters normally live? What happens? And this already dips into what we're going to go about later, story structure. You could make, for every beat of your story, you could make one of these phases and you will collect some great ideas. Yeah, and it's important that you do this with other people because other people will have ideas that you could never have thought of. Okay, so yeah, the next thing is good story structure, but let me maybe have another look into the chat. There are already some reactions. Thank you, JK. Yeah, I actually wrote an article about this there's the link to that article in the chat. Just as Sketchbook says, you have to trap ideas out in the wild, like Pokemon, exactly. And you know, catch all the Pokemon. You can sort them later. All right. Let's not gonna forget about the people in Facebook and Twitch. Okay, nobody wrote something there. All right. Okay. So now let's talk about story structure. And story structure is interesting because it is something that happens organically to most people. We are used to story structures from having seen thousands of stories. You know, we have read books, we have seen television shows, and this story structure is kinda in our DNA by now. This is how humans communicate. This is how humans make what they communicate interesting. And this now starts phase 2, experimentation, where you experiment with the ideas that you have collected. You now have a collection of loose ideas, and you now experiment how they fit together. And in that way, I always like to compare storytelling to a puzzle. These are your puzzle pieces, and you need to figure out how you fit them together, and if they actually fit into that puzzle, or if they belong to a different puzzle. And the storytelling rules, they give us the shape of the puzzle. They kind of tell us how big the puzzle has to be, which color goes in what area of the puzzle. You know, there are rules to this that we kind of have a good feeling for already instinctively. But, yeah, it's important that we know what the structure is. So if there are problems with our stories, because this is the part that actually happens to me most often. I start writing and writing and writing, and there's a point where you just feel like, it's not working, it's not coming together. And in that case, it's good to know story structures, because then you can know structurally what is supposed to happen now. And you don't have to guess or experiment more. You know that you will need something like this. And that's vital information if you want to produce something fast. For example, if you work on a commercial project, the pacing can be very fast, and then these storytelling structures can save your life. They have to be genuine, though. Like, they still have to come from within the characters of the story, and this is sometimes very difficult to make it feel organic and natural and yeah, like it all makes sense together and isn't rushed or something like that. So, yeah, the beats of a story. There are certain beats that a story needs to do, needs to check, needs to do. And they've been described, for example, in the hero's journey. There's a whole book about this. I think I have it here. I think Joseph Campbell wrote The Hero's Journey, but there's also a, what is it called? The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler, which kind of updates it a little. But my favorite abbreviation of The Hero's Journey is one that Dan Harmon did. He's the creator of Community and Rick and Morty. And yeah, this is how Dan Harmon defined the beats that a story needs to have, the stations of the hero's journey. First, we're gonna start with you, the character. This is your character for the day. Film can hover a little bit around different characters until eventually we meet the character which is going to be you. This is the main character. And he is, at the beginning, in a zone of comfort. His life is quite nice, but then something happens needs arise. They now want something. Sometimes they are forced into this. Sometimes they don't have a choice but to leave their zone of comfort. But or sometimes they just realize that they want something. And this makes them set out into the world, into an unfamiliar situation. And in this situation, they can search what they are looking for. And while they search for it, they have to beat the challenges of that search. They have to adapt to it. Now, in this search phase, they don't have yet adapted to it. But when they find what they wanted, and this is also going to be interesting. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. Because here in the middle, they usually find what they said that they want, but later they discover that they actually want something else, that they actually need something else. It's a very classic story trope. But to, take what they want, they have to pay a price. They get into a huge problem, into a huge conflict that happens because of their need, because of their want. Then they start the way back to where they started, and when they are back, they can now change their world, or they have changed. And I love how this kind of creates a sentence. You need to go, search, find, take it, return, and then you have changed. This is very easy to keep in mind, I think, and it helps me to think about what phase my story is in. Or if you realize that one phase of your story is missing, you really need to think about this if you really want to do it like this. Yeah, so who in the chat has already heard about the hero's journey? It's a very famous concept, and if you actually think about like Rick and Morty, and Rick and Morty is really wild. There's a lot of wild stuff happening there, but the story beats are always kind of there, and it's crazy how weird and silly and crazy you can get. Community, his other show, Dan Harmon's other show, is another very good example for this. As long as the beats are somewhat there, it's gonna capture the audience's attention, even if it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. Do you know the Simpsons episodes? Did you ever notice that a Simpsons episode, they start out with something, and then something happens, and then the episode shifts completely away from the first part that happens? It's really interesting about how often these are not connected from the content, but they still connected from the story beat. So next time you watch a Simpson episode, pay attention to that. I find it really interesting how they kind of like trick you to think like this story is about this, but then after like in the search phase, before they start the search phase, the story shifts completely, but it still works because the story feels complete. You had you need go phase, and now the search phase is about something else, but hey, it's still a search phase. It's interesting how it can work sometimes. All right, my story idea. Before I pitch you guys my story, have a quick look into the chat. All right. Question from Azara. Will you put this live video on YouTube? Yes, it will also be available on YouTube after the live stream. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh boy. So now I'm gonna pitch you my story idea. And I haven't, I mean, a lot of my friends know about this character that I created but I haven't pitched this particular story to a lot of people, and it's gonna sound a little bit stupid, but bear with me. I have, I think, some interesting ideas for this. So, my story idea. Our character is Big Scary Bear, and Big Scary Bear wants to go on a date, but he notices that he has bad breath. So he needs to do something about this, but much goes wrong on his quest to minty fresh breath. All right, so this story is actually relying on some silly slapstick with the things that can go wrong while brushing your teeth. And the character, Big Scary Bear, he actually is a sweetheart. He wants to be the biggest and scariest bear in the world, and he lives in a scary cave in the woods, and he's grumpy and rough and wants to be super tough, but deep down he's very sweet and caring. And yeah, so this is Big Scary Bear, and oh yeah, the story is gonna be called Big Scary Bear Brushes His Big Scary Teeth. All right. So what I already have, I had this character for a while. My wife and I came up with it, and we were thinking about all kinds of, like at the beginning, it started out as a pun, like Big Scary Bear drives his big scary car. Big Scary Bear has a big scary breakfast. Big Scary Bear tends his big scary garden and stuff like this. So I already have a lot of scribbles of Big Scary Bear doing big scary things. And among one of them is a thumbnail storyboard where I wrote down or scribbled down the moments that I want to happen in the story. Now, where did I put it? I have the scribble storyboard right here. Now, I already poured tea over it. That's why the quality is so bad. So this doesn't work as a storyboard. And that's also the reason why I'm doing this live stream. I'm doing this phase over, because this quality is not something we can work with. But I need it to, because this is the form in which I wrote down the ideas for this episode. Other people just like to write down sentences. Visual artists often scribble thumbnails like this. And yeah, can probably not see this very well, but Big Scary Bear is combing his hair, getting ready, breathing out, and the flowers that he wants to give to the girl, they wither away, and you notice that he has bad breath. You know what? We're gonna write all of this down. Writing the beats of my story down, so I will pitch everything that's gonna happen in the story to you. And after that, we're gonna continue our lecture with some storytelling tricks and terms, elements that you need to have heard of. But the reason why I'm gonna do the story beats first is because it will give me examples to show you how the storytelling tricks work in action. So we need to do this first, and then we're gonna hear about more storytelling elements that are very important. All right, for this I started this board here in Notion. Notion is actually like Trello. Trello is more famous. It's just a Kanban board where you can have put different cards into different columns. And we're gonna just put the most important points of our story in this you need to go search, find, take, return, and have changed. Okay. we're gonna have a look at the chat, what you guys are saying. Dormea asks, so all stories will only be a modification of that one structure. The thing is, this structure is, I feel like, intentionally vague. Most story structures have some sort of conflict in them, and if you have a conflict, you automatically have the starting situation, you have something that happens and conflicts and more conflicts that need to get solved, and they need to get solved somewhere. So a solution needs to appear, and then of course the character goes home with that solution. So most stories will, you can force them into that structure, even if they are not specifically written with that structure. If you're interested in what else is out there, there's some old structures from the old Greeks, the 3-act and the 5-act structure, and yeah, some other interesting theories. I already see an interesting discussion about that in the chat. Really interesting, really interesting topic. And as I said, those story structures are great as an inspiration and great to streamline your process. It doesn't mean that you actually have to melt your story into that structure right from the beginning. To me, it helps me. You know, there's this fear of the empty page that at least I have. And, you know, if you have already a structure there and you only need to fill it, then I don't know, it helps me. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jester Sketchbook and Le Polygon, for adding some information. All right, so let's see what happens with Big Scary Bear. So Big Scary Bear gets ready for his date. Gets ready for date. Then he sniffs the flower. So, you know, the reason why you can't see these images is because I spilled tea on this page. So, you know, I need to get it out. I need to get it somewhere safe. So Big Scary Bear sniffs the flowers that he got, and breathes out, and the flowers go bad. Sniffs flowers. So there we already are at the need. He has breath, wants to get rid of the bad breath, and he needs to go. Where does he go? He goes into the bathroom. And let's see how he does that. I hear my cat meowing outside my door. I'm not sure if I should let her in. Last time, I have on my keyboard, there's this key, this moon. See that? If you click on that, my computer turns off, goes to sleep. And my cat likes to step onto that button. And if I let her in, I need to be very careful that she doesn't switch off my computer and stops the live stream. All right. I think she stopped meowing. She's gonna be fine. She will find another place. She will sleep. Alright, so Big Scary Bear grabs the toothbrush and wants to put it on wants to put toothpaste on the toothbrush. But I'm sure we all know this. There's only a little bit left. Nothing's coming out. He's squeezing and squeezing, and oh, there's a little bit coming out of the toothpaste. But as soon as he lets go, it goes back into the toothpaste tube. And he's angry about that. Sets it down, squishes it with his hand, and gets toothpaste into his eye. He's running around like crazy in the bathroom, cleaning his face, his eyes from the toothbrush, which are red and looking horrible. Okay, so let's write that down. The bathroom. Obstacle 1. Is the toothpaste. Actually, this is already part of the search. Comes out. Squeezing doesn't work. Hitting it doesn't work. I love that this story structure is meant for like monsters and like, you know, fighting, overcoming obstacles. And here we have the big monster, the toothpaste. Okay, he even gets punished. Toothpaste goes into his eyes. All right. Washes it out. So here we kind of have our first battle. Our first battle done. Let me take a sip. Okay, Big Scary Bear is driving on his moped to the supermarket. And there he has the big choice between different toothpastes. He has mint, he's super fresh, extra fresh, and then of course there's bubble gum. And Big Scary Bear likes himself some bubble gum. He's gonna get that one, of course. Okay, so goes to the store. Picks out a silly flavor. Well, let's have this as a beat first. So many flavors. Is that what you call that? Flavor for toothpaste? I don't know. Okay, so. And that's it with the first page. All right, we are on the other side of the page. Here's again the tea spill. He's driving back on his moped, and now he has the toothpaste, the toothbrush. Everything should be fine, but the toothbrush slips from his hand and lands in the toilet. And then we have this nice shot of him looking down the toilet, thinking about like, should I take it out of the toilet water? Should I, like, this is a thing that I have very clearly in my head, that he's gonna lean over the toilet bowl, be like, no, I can't do that. I can't grab my toothbrush out of the toilet. So So, obstacle 2. Toothbrush. And you can see how we have mini structures into this story. You have this in varying degrees. There are some films that only tackle that are like only one of these scenes. Yeah, feature films will actually have like a bunch of them. Like every scene could be a negotiation, as it's called, with a smaller sub problem that arises and gets solved. So obstacle 2, toothbrush tries to put toothpaste on toothbrush. Toothbrush falls into the bowl. Toilet. Toothbrush falls into the toilet. He has to get a new toothbrush. To the supermarket. Now this is, I don't think I've written that down for later, but personally what I like is to think about my screen directions. If my character goes into a certain direction, it has to mean something. In Lord of the Rings, for example, the characters on their journey often go left to right. I mean, this is the most natural thing too. For at least for European and American and Western culture, it's a habit to, if your story progresses, your character is going from left to right. And you can keep that in mind. You can play with this around. Like, for example, if you show your antagonist early, the bad guy, the villain could always move from right to left, or always look from right to left. And the hero most often can look into the other direction. So you visually already establish those different directions. In case of my big scary bear short, because the supermarket is not really advancing the story. He always has to go back somewhere. He has to go back a step to fix something. So when he goes to the supermarket, he goes from right to left. And then when he leaves the supermarket, the story goes forward again from left to right. You could also have other location, like one location that's always more up or more down in your screen space. Yeah, I learned this from Andreas Ricade, one of my mentors at the Film Academy. Tom and the Strawberry Bread with Honey. With jam and honey, that's it. So Ricade often has those walking characters, like they are walking into a direction. And yeah, you can see that Tom is going left to right to find his bread with strawberry jam and honey. And Ricade always has very clear screen directions. Sometimes they have a well where he goes down. Sometimes he's going up. And somehow Ricade always manages to fit that very well into the story. It always feels very natural, never forced when a new screen direction is introduced. Okay, but I'm going off track here. So, Big Scary Bear is back in the supermarket, and you know there's all those different brushes, different colors, different bristles. But then he turns to the right, which is the screen direction of progress. He sees an electric toothbrush, and he's like, "Oh my God, I need to have that electric toothbrush." Packs it, goes back to his home, left to right, and puts the toothpaste on the electric toothbrush. Supermarket. Okay. Difficult choice. Many different options. Toothbrushes. Now, the other day I had a thought about changing this. So I was kind of thinking, and maybe you guys can help me if this is too much. So with the toothpaste, he already picked the bubblegum toothpaste, which is a silly choice for a big scary bear. So I was thinking, when he sees all the different toothbrushes, he could gravitate towards a silly toothbrush, like a unicorn toothbrush. And then he sees the electric toothbrush, which is advertised as this manly way to brush your teeth. So I would have this element again, that he has to choose between, the tough manly thing and the silly thing that he actually also likes. So I'm not so sure about this, but that's why I'm writing this. So I have this idea conserved. So at first, favorites a unicorn toothbrush, but then sees manly ad for electric toothbrush, loves it, gets it, drives home. All right, let me see what's going on in the chat. All right, just checking if everything is still in order. Seems to be. All right. Obstacle 3. Electric toothbrush. So what we are doing here, we are actually alternating between search and find. He's always searching something, finding something that doesn't quite work. And out of everything, I have to admit, this now is the weakest point. Oh no, not yet. No, not yet. First, there comes my favorite point in the story before we get to the weakest point. So he proudly puts the toothpaste on the toothbrush, tries to switch it on, click, 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 click. And of course, it doesn't switch on because, batteries are not included. Facepalm. Oh yeah, and this time we're going to the store without showing the store. We just see the same bit of road, big scary boy going to the left, wait a second, and then he's going back to the right. No need to show the supermarket, because we know what happens there. Yeah, he's getting the batteries. I love moments like this where you taught the audience something and you can play something off screen because the audience knows what is happening. Okay, so batteries are not included. Just back and forth from supermarkets to get it. Now this is interesting. I feel like in the images you can already see this is hopefully going to be funny. I always find it so bad to tell about like, yeah, I'm sure that my joke is gonna be funny, but I think this will be funny. But in the text it doesn't feel like that. And sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes you put an idea in the script and it doesn't work yet in the storyboard. So it's always good to have both, because you can inform the different media, the different ways of writing down a story, and use the strength for multiple ways of writing down a story. So option 4. This is where my scribbles end, and this is where the story gets kind of fuzzy. This is my least favorite part, because something structurally needs to be wrong with the electric toothbrush. And at first I thought, he could be switching it on, and on the sound level it has like the sound of like a chainsaw. It goes like, and he's like, I don't want to put this in my mouth. And then it sounds like damn it, I don't know the English word for that. Like at a construction site when they're cutting metal, it sounds like one of these. It goes like, and he can't do it. He can't brush his teeth with the electric toothbrush. Yeah, I'm not that content with that one yet, but this is how I'm gonna write it down for now. Therese, all right. Chainsaw hurts his teeth. All right. Can't do it. Now, the last solution that he finds, and we have been going back and forth between searching and finding something, is in the beginning. I mean, we've seen him riding his moped multiple times. He's wearing a helmet while riding the moped. And in the beginning, before he gets ready, I actually want him also to, stand in front of his bike, have the flowers ready and stuff like this outside. So you can already see that he has a bike and he has a helmet. So let's write that down. Big Scary Bear, outside, ready to drive to date with moped, has a helmet ready. Okay, we need this helmet because the last solution is actually he's now all panic, sees the helmet, sees the helmet and puts it on and realizes that now you can't smell his breath. He puts on the helmet, goes like, this is good enough. All right, so now we advance the story to something new. He feels like he found the solution. And we can move on. So this is the new phase. The girl bear arrives. And Big Scary Bear immediately puts a helmet on her. Like, the moment she opens the door, she's gonna be like, ding dong! And Big Scary Bear is opening and looking like very and puts a helmet on her immediately. It's just like, and he points to the bike and is like, we're just going with the bike. You need a helmet. But you know, in reality, of course, he's only worried about his breath. Okay, so the date. And here I want to go into like a montage, but I don't picture it to be all animated. I just picture it to be still frames, and they're gonna do all activities where you don't have to remove the helmet, or where bad breath is not a problem. For example, they're going diving. Now, I wanted them to eat something garlicky, but I might save that for the end. I'm gonna put it down for now. And it's gonna be really fast. It's just gonna be bam, 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 the different things. We need more of that. And then the last situation is they sitting. They're watching the stars. Just gonna make a note that we need more of these montage ideas. So they're watching the stars, and then where the point comes where they would kiss, you know, this movie cliche where they would like slowly move towards each other. The moment that happens, Big Scary Bear puts the helmet on him and on the girl bear. All right. And this is a price that he has to pay, because now they can't kiss. They can't advance the romance for now. And one idea that I had was that she asks him, like, why the helmets? Like, she wants to put it off, but he's like puts it down again and tells her in like a speech bubble that she could get hit by a meteor. She's sad, or both are sad. With this compromise. So, and this is the reason why I want to save garlic eating for later. Because they could, you know, the problem with Big Scary Bear's breath could become significantly less of a problem when it turns out that both have bad breath. So I'm gonna put that in the return phase. Both eat garlic, both have bad breath. And this is kind of like the the thing where it shifts from, oh, I want to have good breath, to having bad breath is not that bad of a problem. What lessons are we teaching here? Turns out not to be a problem for her. And in the end, I actually want this to be the post-credit scene, that they both brush their teeth. Maybe she's used to using an electric toothbrush and then he tries it too, or something like that. But we need, you know, a conclusion, I think, would be nice after the credits or something. All right. So this is the journey that I want to send Big Scary Bear on, from having bad breath to trying different things or encountering different obstacles. That's more the thing. He doesn't try different things to get rid of the breath. He just wants to brush his teeth, but he can't because of these obstacles. That was the other thing that I thought initially. And that's an interesting idea, how, you know, in the collecting phase and in the experimentation phase, you can have different focus. In the collecting phase, I was still thinking like, oh, he could be trying different methods to get rid of the bad breath. But I moved away from that because I felt like the cures for bad breath felt a little bit too random. Like it could be mouthwash and for some reason it doesn't work. You know, it could be those things that should work but don't work for him. And I didn't like that. That made the story a little bit muddy. So I, going from the collecting phase to the experimentation phase, I was like, no, he just wants to brush his teeth and they're just a bunch of obstacles, and let's do some slapstick with that. Maybe he falls, maybe he, I don't know. So this is already a result of the experimentation so far. All right. And you see that the story at the moment is a little bit fuzzy in the end. And during my studies, this really used to bother me. I was always like, if I don't know the end, if I don't know exactly what happens in the return phase, it's going to be a bad story. And while it is true that what happens during the return and change phase can make your story more memorable and more unique, and you actually should have those informations when you start animating. You should know what happens in the end, because then you can hide hints at the end, in the beginning, and stuff like that. But it's okay as long as you're aware that something should be there and you have like a feeling of what should be there. I feel like your brain keeps working on it, and one day you just wake up and be like, I have the idea that should happen in the end. And it would be nice if you could just force this, if you could force to have the surprising, crazy, cool idea for the end. But sometimes it just needs to simmer a little bit. Or you could research into that direction. If you're like, okay, I do a slapstick cartoon, for example, I could go and watch a bunch of old Disney cartoons, see how they resolve the stuff in the end, and maybe that will inspire me and kick something loose in the brain. So yeah, that's what structure does for me. That I know that something should be there and that I can keep working on the something that should be there and improve that. I hope that makes sense. All right, as promised, we're gonna have a look at more storytelling tips and elements that you can think about right now. First, let me check the chat again. All right. Very quiet. Are you guys still there? This is so different from talking to a class. right. Okay. So here we are, important storytelling. Yeah. So let's talk about important storytelling elements that you should at least think about how they could fit into your story. And we have, oh yeah, this is a good one. There's one thing that we all have in common. All humans, every single one in the world has this in common. This is an experience that we all share. We all have been treated unfairly in some point of our lives. And this is a really good and bad storytelling trick at the same time. If you want your audience to feel with a character, treat the character unfairly, because we all empathize with that. We all feel with that, because we all, sooner or later in life, you know, it doesn't matter if you are a baby and you have the best parents in the world, you will still feel treated unfairly when you're not allowed to eat that cookie. Like, every single person on earth has had that experience of being treated unfairly and empathize with that and feels with that. So this is a very old trick in the book, but it's a good one. It works. It has, again, to be genuine, to be authentic, and your audience can feel if you're just doing that if you just force it. But yeah, this is a good one. This is an important one. Yeah, wants and needs. We heard about this a little bit already. So usually a character in the go phase sets out because they want something, because they, in their head, have a thought that is, I want this. I want to be famous. I want to win this race. I want to be, I don't know, first on the moon. Who knows what? There can be all kinds of wants that people set out to do. And one of the lessons in the stories is very often that towards the take phase, they realize that what they want is actually not what they really need. Either what they want doesn't turn out to be that great, or is actively bad for them, or makes them realize there's something else that would actually be better, or this is not solving my problem, or this is creating a new problem. And towards the end of the story, they realize what they actually need. And this can be used for some great reveals. For example, Jungle Book. In the Jungle Book, Mowgli says the whole time he wants to stay in the jungle. He wants to stay with the animals. And everybody tells him, no, you can't stay in the jungle because of Shere Khan. And he thinks, no, this is not a reason. Shere Khan needs to be defeated. And in the end, they actually defeat Shere Khan. Shere Khan flees. And Mowgli could stay in the jungle. He said the entire film, I want to stay in the jungle. But then, at the end of the Jungle Book, when he sees the human girl, he runs after the human girl. Because he realizes what he needs is actually to find other humans like him. So I think this is a very impressive example of wants and needs. And I haven't seen the live action Jungle Book, but don't they change that? Don't they change that Mowgli stays in the jungle? I heard something like that, which I'm like, no, you did not understand the story. Like, this is the point. The point is that he doesn't fit in there, and he needs to strive for more. And yeah, it's actually part of the message of this movie. All right, so this about wants and needs. Stakes. There needs to be something at stake for the character, and during a longer film, you always need to raise the stakes. So a problem has to become bigger and bigger and bigger and more urgent as the story beats progress. In a short film, you can get away with just having the same constant thing on the line. You know, for example, in my story, you have that date. The stake is that this date is not gonna go well. And Big Scary Bear is fearing that he will make a bad impression. And those stay the stakes throughout the film. And, you know, maybe we can make a nice resolution in the film, like he is afraid that when she actually, you know, when I take this helmet off, she will smell my real breath. Or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, think about the stakes and how you can maybe make them more urgent and pressing. Twists. Twists is a fun one. And people who watch this channel, they probably know that I hate the twist in Frozen, famously, because I think they do not they violate a rule for good twists. So a story goes from a question. Make this bigger. Goes from a question to an answer. Oh no, why is my pen not writing? It's a Wacom pen. Why are you not writing? So, as the story goes on, you tease your audience. You tease your audience that the solution could be A, or the solution could be B, or C. And maybe you sometimes, like, you know, in the case of Big Scary Bear, we actually go to different possible solutions for the situation. What you could also do is make your audience believe that the solution is going to be C. Like, you hint that the want is actually going to be the solution. That's a very common pattern, that, you know, things are going well for the character. They're going well into the direction of the want, and he might get his want, and then everything might be fine. But then unexpectedly, instead of going to C, you go to an entirely new solution, and ideally one that the audience didn't anticipate. Like, they did anticipate that C might be happening, but they didn't think that D would happening. And if you are really good, you're gonna put D right in front of them from the beginning, have them forget it, and overlook it, and then when you come back to it, people will be like, oh, I saw, damn, yeah, I noticed that earlier, but I didn't think that would be it. How cool. Or there was something. They will remember if they already got teased into that direction. Are there Steven Universe fans out there tonight? Because I think Steven Universe does this so great in so many instances. There are some things that are teased right from episode 1. Like, you can see right from episode 1 that Garnet has 2 gems in her hand. You can see that in every episode. And you just don't know what that means. And then, you know, in the a lot of episodes later, we're gonna find out what those 2 gems actually mean. And this is one of my favorite examples where you have a twist, you have something where you go like, whoa, how cool is that? You didn't expect it, but it was right in front of you the entire time. I love that. I strive to do that in my own stories, but it's incredibly hard. And in Steven Universe, they don't just do that with that one thing. They have a bunch of things that they hide from you in plain view. So, yeah. Let me check if the chat is still working. Oh yeah, there have been some more things in the chat that I didn't see. So yeah, let me take let me have a few minutes to look at the chat. Okay, so you guys are talking about the... my chat froze up, and I'm just seeing all your wonderful comments right now. I'm sorry, I need to take a moment. Reliant Art says, I feel a great example of twist is the Sixth Sense film. Yeah. The Sixth Sense is pretty cool too. And it's... and it the Sixth Sense became like a symbol for twists. You know, everybody knows this. Everybody knows what the twist is by now. It's one of the most favorite spoilers. Just because, and you know, it structurally, in the Sixth Sense, it structurally makes so much sense. You know, at the end, you're like, oh yeah, that is the other logical explanation. Of course. I love that. Okay, so let's go on. What else do I have in my presentation? The theme. Okay, so I have to admit, I do the theme in most of my stories very instinctively. At least I think. I mean, this is the first personal project I've done in 5 years, so I don't know. The theme kind of always has been more instinctual stuff for me, where in the end I realized like, oh yeah, this is the theme. This makes sense. But there are some people who set out before they even construct all the stuff that we just constructed, the story structure. They are like. I need to know what the theme is. I need to know if this is about friendship overcoming all obstacles, love overcoming all obstacles. Is this about belonging, finding the place where you belong? There are only a couple of themes. I think 5? I don't know. Probably should have researched that. But yeah, all these things that I'm talking about, I could and I will make single lessons just about these one topics at some point, as if I don't have enough to do already. But you know, theme is a very big and interesting thing, because the theme should be in every single scene, in every word of dialogue, everything that happens in your story should have to do with the theme. And if you want to go further, you can even go so far as to say, like, I have a specific message about my theme. For example, Titanic. Titanic theme, love, of course, it's love. But the message towards the theme is that love overcomes all obstacles, even in this tragic way. You know, it's not a happy end, but this scene at the end where she throws the jewels, the stuff, into the ocean, it's kind of like her. It's still like the peak or the end of their love story. Like they're still together, even when he's dead. They are still in a way together with the ocean, through the ocean, and she still feels loved, and love overcomes this tragedy and her age, and it's still there. And you know, this is a message towards the theme. If you think about Rick and Morty, it's often about you know, the meaning and meaningless of life. Same thing with BoJack Horseman, is how we deal with the meaningless of life, or you know, the seemingly meaningless of life, and how different characters approach that differently. And this is negotiated in every episode of BoJack. Or how we give life meaning and stuff like that. That could be a theme. Yeah. In Big Scary Bear, actually, it's, you know, accepting yourself, even if you are different, even if you are quirky, even if you have things that you are embarrassed about. And for Big Scary Bear, it's not only the bad breath that he is embarrassed about. It's actually, you know, he likes sweet stuff. He likes cute stuff. And as a big scary bear, you're not supposed to like sweet stuff and cute stuff. So I'm kind of dipping into that territory. I can't grasp it quite yet in one sentence, what exactly I want it to be and what exactly I want my message to be. I guess it melts into the self-acceptance message at the moment, which is fine for me. There was this author, I forgot his name. He actually writes the theme and his message in the last sentence of his book. The last sentence of his book is always his message, clearly and you know, not hidden there in the text. And one time he didn't finish a book for years because he couldn't pinpoint it. He couldn't pinpoint it in one sentence what his message was, what his book was. Obviously, it was in every page, but he just couldn't put it in one sentence. So he didn't publish the book until he had that sentence that perfectly summarizes the theme and his message. And I think this crazy story can show you how there's, on the one hand side, your story is kind of like melting and slowly getting into shape. But how on the other hand side, it's also about nailing down what exactly it is about and then keeping it in that shape and kicking everything out that doesn't have to do with your theme, with your message, because then it doesn't need to be in there. All right. What do we have in the chat? Do you use the three-part premise to construct your stories based on the theme, or do you just use the theme to construct the story? It's a question by Relon Art. I'm all about story internally. That's how I think naturally about what happens with this character. What does the character want? What is the obstacle that the character has? So when I construct my idea, I'm on this very literal, what happens in the story. I'm in the story world. And I do think it's really important for stories to have a theme, but I usually discover my themes afterwards and be like, oh, this is good. I should strengthen this. That's the thing. That's why you should know your theme. Like after you've been working on your story for a while, you should sit down and be like, what is my theme? What is my message? And then you strengthen that and you kick everything out that is not about or that doesn't fit to your message and your theme. All right, this next one is a little bit about humor. I would love to do more about humor, its own videos, but I just, because, you know, I'm making a hopefully funny short film, we need to talk about humor for a second. My favorite device to create humor is to put human condition versus logic. You have a character doing something that is very human, out of human need, out of how humans are, and then something very logical happens. And the interesting thing is that the funny part is the logical part. For example, Big Scary Bear is clumsy, drops the toothbrush in the toilet. And the funny part is how he's looking into the toilet and is like, do I take this out? Do I? I can't. And then he goes to the store. And I think this will be funny because it's so logical. We all can empathize with. We don't want to grab into the toilet. We don't want to do this. And seeing somebody else struggle with that, very logical problem. He's not going to do it just because of a logical reason, is funny. What else do we have? Yeah, when the female bear, wants to pull up the helmet and he like overreacts and puts the helmet back on her and it's like, do not take off the helmet. That's also human condition. You know, he doesn't want to be embarrassed, doesn't want her to smell the breath. And it's super logical for him to put the helmet on her. It's gonna be funny, I hope, but it's super logical at the same time. And this is something that I always found very interesting, how if you do humor right, it's like dominoes. You set up dominoes and the funny part is just a logical chain. It's just, you know, maybe that's also why chain reactions are funny. Like if someone, God, there's this one famous scene, but it's German comedy. Probably nobody knows German comedy. Forget about it. Damn it. But yeah, I could talk about this forever. It's my favorite device for humor, human condition versus logic. The other device for humor is a pattern shift or a pattern mismatch. If and this has to do with breaking expectations. If a character behaves like he is in one situation, but he behaves like he's in an entirely different situation. Is there an example for that in Big Scary Bear in this episode? I don't know. I mean, maybe the helmet that he's overreacting is a pattern shift, because usually you don't react like that to somebody wanting to take off the bike helmet while stargazing. You know, while stargazing, you should put your helmet off. And that he wants her to put the helmet back on is also a pattern mismatch. But it could be something like somebody's going shopping, but you tell it as if they are in a war zone. And they're like, you know, there's the last can of stuff that they want to buy, the last favorite cereal, and it's treated as if it's a war movie, as if it's somebody, or like a treasure hunting movie. So that is a pattern shift or pattern mismatch to create humor. I love talking about about humor in this analytical way. Oh yeah, Reliant Art says the bear being cute in itself is a pattern shift. Yeah, of course. See, you get so blind about your own stories. This is a serious problem of a personal project. I mean, I'm a very analytical person, but that I didn't just tell you that is... you can be so blind with your own stuff. There's a good question by Raul. How to get rid of a linear story and make it more interesting and bring climax. I mean, like my story plot, but they often tend to be very parallel. Okay, yeah, this is a very good question. I'm gonna put that away for later. We're gonna talk more about that at the end. Good point. But first, I want to discuss with you, or tell you my view on if animation needs a script at all. You saw that with my scribbles, with my thumbnails, I could already turn that into a storyboard, and it would be it would be fine. I could start fleshing out the storyboard just like that. But maybe you saw how in the end there's something missing, and sometimes you tend to overlook that. If you have pretty pictures, if you have like, okay, the choreography is right, the facial expressions are funny, it feels good, it looks good, then you might be tempted to overlook that your story might be missing something. And by forcing yourself to think in story structure very much while writing it, for example, how I did into those different columns, this can help you to find the weaknesses in your story and improve them. Also, if you have dialogue, you definitely need a script, because film fundings, professional production companies, and one day if you have team members, they need to know what's in your head early, and sometimes you don't have the time to make a storyboard, and they just expect these things from you. Also, if you're working with voice actors, they need something to read from when they do the voice recordings. So I would say it's industry standard. Everybody expects it in a professional production process. So just do it, and it will help you to see some weaknesses of your story along the way. Yeah, script, writing stuff down is very good to get the storytelling structure just right. And you can feel the big impulses before focusing on the small ones. Now, this is interesting. You might have noticed that when I was collecting the story beats, they feel more general. Like, Big Scary Bear washes his face after he got the toothbrush in his, the toothpaste in his eyes. That is a very dry description of what is happening there. It's very much focusing just on the step. The step needs to be there to get to the next step. And in the storyboarding, you are already going into detail. You are already like, what is that funny facial expression that he will have? And again, a funny facial expression can also distract from having a good structure and stuff like that. And in storyboards, especially in late storyboards, if you've already boarded your story over and over again, you, at least I, will have things like, if I want the character to look at each other funny, I'll be like, put those images in there, like those 3, 4, or 5 images to explain just how a character is glancing over, glancing back, scratching his head, looking at it again. You know, these kinds of situations where you need multiple images to really explain what the character is thinking. And those moments are very important, but once you've drawn them, they're very difficult to sacrifice. You're like, oh, I like this one. I like this moment where they just look at each other. But, you know, sometimes you need to kick out scenes that you fell in love with. And for me, it helps to not have drawn it. Does that make sense? Like, you know, as soon as I've drawn it into the storyboard, I feel like I'm more attached to it. And sometimes that's an obstacle. At the same time, scripts can be more detailed than the beats in some regards. Like, into the script, you could write exactly what is going on in the character's head. In a storyboard, this is left to interpretation. You know, somebody needs to read that facial expression and be like, oh, this stare means that he's thinking about his long lost love, and stuff like that. And maybe you just did a scribble and it doesn't hold up. It doesn't have that in it yet. But if you have it in the script, what is supposed to be in that facial expression, then you can always check, okay, is my facial expression in the storyboard, is that doing what I want it to do? So that's why I think we kind of need both, and they inform each other and help you to create the best story by marrying those two worlds of thinking. Okay, script writing tools. Now a script. They have a standard formatting that usually all studios, all writers write in. I have here the script from Zootopia, and yeah, it is written how screenplays have to be written. We have a scene heading saying inside a barn, a jungle, makes it already clear that it's a set, that there's something up with the jungle, and it always says if it's day and night, day or night. This has to do with, you know, live action shooting. They need that for planning because it's very difficult to turn a night scene into day on set. And then you describe the action, then you have the character name, and then you have what the character is saying. Oh, I love this scene. I love the opening of Zootopia. And this is just how the whole thing is written. You know, you have the description of the action, what is happening, what are the people doing. You have the characters saying something. And yeah, and all these formatings are following a standard. And they're doing that for a reason, because if you keep to this standard, it's very easy to estimate how long your film will be in total. So I think they say like a script page is a minute. So we have 110 pages, so we'll be around at 110 minutes. So pretty accurate. Yeah, so this is the format that you need to write in. And of course, you could go into Word or OpenOffice or whatever you need, and whatever you already use, and build a formatting that looks like that. But there are a couple other options that we have. Gonna look at the chat again here. Dr. Like the Cyborg Wolf says the order, which is script, storyboard, animatic final result. Yeah, that's ideally how it should be. And with the storyboard, you already have something that you can turn into an animatic just by having the storyboard images and putting them into a video editing software and timing them. You will have a much better understanding of how your film will feel. Okay, so yeah, we saw the example. The industry standard tool, just so you have heard the name, is called Final Draft. Don't buy this software. It's expensive, and yeah, let's not get into that. But Final Draft is what every professional writer used, is what a production company uses. Even if you work in another software, they will put your script into Final Draft to output it for further processing. But it's expensive, it's clunky, it's old. There are much better options now. One that I find very interesting personally is Writer Solo. It's a it's the little brother of the software Writer Duet, and it's really cool because it's free, it's online in the browser, but you don't have to save it in the browser. You can also save your script on a Dropbox or on a location in your computer. I think you even have to do it. Yeah, you can save it on the computer and the Dropbox, in Google Drive, in the iCloud. But it's this nice, neat online editor. And Writer Solo is perfect if you're writing the script by yourself, if you're writing it alone. Writer Duet is meant for teams, where you can, like in a Google Doc, write with multiple people on a script and pass comments back and forth and all this good stuff. Yeah, there is other free software. There's even open source software, but often the software that you can install in your computer feels very clunky, feels very, like open source software sometimes feels. And Writer Solo feels fresh, feels like the big product does, like Writer Duet does, and gets the job done. Now, because I'm a super nerd, before I found Writer Solo, I had another workflow. I installed Visual Studio, which is a code editor. It's actually meant for writing program code and web design, HTML, CSS, and stuff like this. But there's an add-on for this, which is called Better Fountain add-on, and it turns Fountain Markdown into a beautiful looking script. And Fountain Markdown, I shouldn't go into too much detail with that because then I will lose everybody watching here. Fountain Markdown is a very cool way how you can write scripts in any text editor. And here's an example. This is how you write Fountain in your text editor, and this can be anything. Here on the left side, this can be in Word, this can be in a code editor like for Visual Studio. You just write it like this, and Fountain will turn it into this screenplay looking thing. You need to learn a few formatting things, like whenever you start a scene with a line with exterior or interior, if you're having a scene that is inside or outside, it will turn that into the scene heading every time you have a word written in all caps, it will turn that into a character name, and the line that you have directly under it will turn into what the character says. And yeah, this is very cool. I have, I'm not kidding you, written scenes on my smartphone while I was on the bus. I've written it like that, and then I could just pour it into Visual Studio, into the code editor, and I could export a screenplay. So just so you know, just so you have heard about it, that's an option that you have. And by the way, Writer Solo can save and open Fountain Markdown. So I save everything in Fountain Markdown, no matter if I edit it in Visual Studio or if I edit it in Writer Duet or Writer Solo. Yeah. There are other options that you can pay money for. There's Fade-In, which I would recommend if you want something that you can install on your computer and is not web-based. I mean, actually, first I would recommend Visual Studio with the Fountain add-on, but if you want to have a screenplay software, you might be wondering, what is the advantage of using a screenplay software over just using Markdown? With the screenplay software, they can also do a bunch of automated things. Like a lot of screenplay software, they have like statistics built in. Like you can check how many words a character says during the entire script. So if you want to balance your script a little more, this can be very helpful to see like, oh, this character is talking much more than the other character. Should be like this. And you know, sometimes it can also be one of the famous problems is how female characters are treated in screenplays, and sometimes the statistics can help you to have like a male-female balance or stuff like that, if that is what you're after. Or you could also, in many screenwriter software, you can export, if you have voice recordings, you could export just the lines of that one character and give it to that voice actor, or to have like a checklist to tick it off. Some screenwriting software works well with shot planning software. So if, especially in a live action context, I guess they do that too in studios. You can actually count how many sets do I have, how much of my story plays in which set. So, you know, in which set should I put more effort and stuff like that. So this is actually very important for production, to get the planning right, to get the focus right, and stuff like that. Then, of course, you could also get Writer Duo, which is an online-based software. And if you like Writer Solo, then Writer Duo does exactly the same thing. It just has a bunch of more options. All right. Let's see if there's more in the chat. Not right now. Okay. All right. Yeah, and with that, we are done with the lecture. If you have any more questions, then you can ask them now. I'll take a little bit of time to answer your questions. And actually, it was my plan to turn the story beats into a script, but it doesn't look like we are getting to that tonight. I'm also not interested. I'm also wondering how interesting it would be. I feel like filling out the storytelling beats felt a bit slow and maybe not so interesting. But we have definitely time for some more questions. So if there's more that you want to discuss, just put that in the chat now, and I will pull up the question that I collected earlier. Okay, so how to get rid of a linear story and make it more interesting and bring climax. So a linear story happens because you have a very clear goal and your character is constantly working towards that goal, constantly getting closer towards that goal. Here we can, to make it more interesting, we can actually borrow something from acting theory. Acting theory says that a character does pursue one goal, one objective, until it gets replaced by another objective. A character pursues an objective until it's achieved or replaced. And you can play with that a little bit. You can give your character what he thinks he wants, and then it turns out it is not what he needs. And then you give him something else that he might think he wants, but again, it's not it. Or you put an obstacle in his way, like a lot of fighting focused movies have that, where, you know, I have to fight the main villain, I have to fight the end boss, but first there's this other obstacle, there's this henchman, this underling in the way, and then, you know, temporarily the acting objective shifts from wanting to defeat the villain to wanting to defeat that one enemy, or, you know, surviving that one problem. You can also make a linear story more interesting by varying the obstacles. In my Big Scary Bear story, we are not doing that. We are the means that helps him the means that help him brush his teeth, they break. And in my story, it's always the same. It's always about the mean of trying to brush the teeth. But it could be something else. You know, the doorbell could be ringing and the girl bear is already there, and stuff like, you know, which would also raise the stakes, actually. Should we do that? I don't know. But yeah, and then of course raising the stakes is the other thing. You could make the characters realize that there's even more on the line. Oh god, one of my favorite movies is Wreck-It Ralph, with regards to story structure, setup, payoff, twists, and stuff like that. And I love how they continuously give you those rules that feel kind of like, oh, they're just throwing in rules, but for some reason it works in Wreck-It Ralph so well. So they establish very early, if you die outside your own game, you are dead. You don't respawn. And then later they use that when Ralph is actually going into other games, and the other games are very, very dangerous, which raises the stakes. Then Vanellope cannot leave Sugar Rush, which raises the stakes when the bugs infest Sugar Rush. And it's very interesting how this movie continuously, it doesn't really twist and turn. It kind of comes back to stuff it set up first, but it does it in a way where it always gets more and more urgent. Yeah, the games could get unplugged, which is established with the whole turbo thing, yeah, I have to make a I have to make a YouTube video about Wreck-It Ralph. It's so interesting what they do there. Okay. Eric tells me that I haven't answered an email. Let me check if I got your email. Yeah, it's very, very possible that I overlooked an email not responding. the thing is, the year was kind of rough for me. I mean, it's for a lot of people with all this Corona stuff going on. So I kind of put Animator Island on ice a little bit. I mean, you probably noticed there were no videos. And the other thing that I did is I didn't answer comments and I didn't answer mails. And I'm very sorry for this. But it felt for me, it was the thing that I had to do. I had to, step away from things a little. And instead of making the difficult decision, who do I write back and who do I not write back, I was like, okay, I can't right now. I'm not reacting to anything at the moment. And I want to change that. And I'm starting with this live stream. So at least in the live stream, I'll try to answer comments and everything. But please understand if I don't answer emails. It's nothing personal. I just couldn't, and I think I still can't for a while. But yeah, there are more questions. From Reliant Art, how would you approach a story in which the antagonist is a representation of the protagonist's flaws? What I mean by this is there's no external antagonist other than the protagonist himself. Yeah. This is... actually, it's not that rare that you have a protagonist being his own antagonist. Let me think about a good example. I think this is easier to talk about, easier to grasp if you have an example. I'm pulling a blank here. So what can help with these stories is to be very, very clear about what these flaws are. And to be very clear about that the character is unhappy about the flaws, wants to change them, or has this other side, this good side. But then you need to show how the character is in his own way. And you need to be increasingly bad. Raising the stakes. The way in which he sabotages himself needs to get more serious during the story. And one thing you could do is, for example, one step you could do is, to a certain degree, he's only hurting himself, but then there comes a moment where he hurts others too. Like, not only himself, he's now becoming an outward antagonist towards other people. He's becoming a threat to other people that he maybe doesn't want to mean to be a threat to or mean to hurt. That would be an example of how you could raise the stakes with that sort of character. I'm thinking about an example where you're surprised how bad the character actually is. There is this show, this Looney Tunes show. It was a reboot. It's already a couple of years old. It was a Looney Tunes reboot that felt like a sitcom. And it has some excellent episodes with Daffy. In one episode, he's like just downright abusing the other characters, basically, and he's just taking it to more and more strange extremes, and it is super funny. But he's such a bad character. He's so mean, and he doesn't, like, he gets all the chances to redeem himself, and he doesn't do it. He always does the bad thing. This show has very mixed episodes. Like, some are amazing and some are so-so. But yeah, that episode stuck with me of how far they actually take Daffy. Ah, Reliant. Yeah, maybe Scrooge. Yeah, in a way, Scrooge McDuck. Um, You know, it's also a want and need thing. Like, often the characters stay the antagonist, or they do the antagonist thing because they think that that is what they want. But then after they have done it, they realize they actually need something else, and they need to apologize. Or if you're in the middle of the story, they just make it worse and worse and worse. You can see this in Modern Family, in that sitcom. Jay, the old guy, the grandpa, is actually the main character, and he is sometimes sabotaging the other family members' plans, and you know, because he just wants to go to his club and play golf, and like he's you know, this grumpy old man, and so he kind of does antagonistic stuff, and then later realizes that he needs to do something else, and does that. Very interesting topic. Very interesting. Durmia says, I have an animation idea. I've the theme and I know who the characters are, but I don't know how to connect the story for later episodes. Okay, you have the theme and you know who the characters are. I think what really helps with a series, if you know where the story goes towards the end, if you know what your finale is. I know this is super hard. I just pitched you a story where I'm like, well, at the end, I don't know exactly what happens. But I think what would be enough is that you already have an image of... I don't know what your story is, but if you have like you want to have this great big fight scene. Let's take, for example, Avatar: The Last Airbender. That epic fight in the end made it feel like they were holding back in the other fights. Like, you can really feel like this end boss fight, they really wanted it to make it feel like this big finale, this big thing, and everything comes together, what Aang learned during the trip, and you know, the focus that he gained and all the kinds of airbending that he learned, it's now coming together in this finale. And you know, that was their vision. That was, in case of this story, it's very clear that it has to come to this in the end. But you know, that could be something that drives you towards there, even if you don't know how you get there. I'm pretty sure for Avatar, they didn't know all the stations along the way, and they had to invent some to make the story long enough. But yeah. Let me think. Connect. So, okay, yeah, so have something that you're working for. And then a series is kind of like a story structure, only longer. You know, you could have them find what they thought they wanted in episode 6. And after episode 6, the series kind of shifts and it goes more into the direction of what they actually need to do. Yeah. Reliant Art said, with regards to the character who is his own antagonist, Walter White, yeah, from Breaking Bad. Oh, yes. I think that was what was stuck in my head the whole time. I was like, I know a character who is so bad that you're always surprised, like, how bad is he really? And oh my god, yeah, Walter White, when he kills Jesse's girlfriend, holy... yeah, that was crazy. And you're just speechless of how bad this character is. And you know, in his head, he's justifying it. In his head, he I think he even doesn't he tell Jesse later why he did that, and in his head it just makes sense, and he's so evil. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Good point. Eric, okay, you're planning to buy Toon's Premium and the storyboard software from Digital Video. Cool. I never used the premium Toons version. I've only ever used OpenToons. I don't think I got your mail. Did you write it as an email or? Anyway. All right. Drumea, glad I could help. Yeah, probably the moment I stop the live stream, I will have a bazillion things will come to my head that I should have said during the lecture or that I could have said to one of your comments. But, yeah. Another question from Raul. Is it mandatory to have gags in an animated short? Or just the emotional beats can carry out the story? Okay. Animation does not need to be funny. No, you can make an animation completely without gags. And in fact, sometimes if you're not feeling very comfortable with telling something humorous, then don't. If you feel you gravitate more towards more serious stuff, to emotional stuff, to experimental stuff, do that. People will feel that if you put your heart in it and you feel it and it's interesting to you and is understandable. Like, that is the point where you do need storytelling techniques, even if you do an experimental film, even if you're just floating colors. They should still follow some beats. They should still become more intense. There should still be some development and some surprises and stuff like that. Even if you do experimental stuff, you still need a structure, a story structure, a story-like structure. And that can carry your film. Just seeing how things get evolve, get more intense, change, shift. You need surprises along the way, and that can be enough. And with humor, there's actually a risk. If you're doing something funny, now I'm talking to the people who say, like, I wanna do funny animations. The problem with wanting to be funny is a bad drama, a bad dramatic story often still is a story. There could still be something in there that's very enjoyable. There could be, you know, a bad drama story can be played by good actors, and then there's still some emotions in the acting. It can have beautiful animation, and it will be not good, but it will be okay. But if you do a funny story and it isn't funny, then it's nothing anymore. You completely failed. You completely missed your goal. So trying to be funny is actually more risky than not trying to be funny. Yeah. Reliance says, at the end of the day, animation is just a technique, not a genre. Not all cinema has comedy in it, and at the end of the day, an animated short is basically cinema. Yes, of course, exactly. Animation is not a genre, and it can be anything. It can be drama, it can be a western, it can be science fiction, it can be a romantic comedy, it can be everything. Yeah. And I think that's a good that's a good ending for the live stream. Yeah, I'll be doing this more often now. I'll try to do it once a week and progress this short film and share my thoughts, share my process, and my progress, hopefully. And I would be very happy if you come join me, if you hang out with me. Now, we have a bunch of interesting stuff on animatorisland.com. I didn't do my I have prepared these graphics here. Let me do this at least once. You can go to animatorisland.com. We have a 2D animation series that I started and will continue soon, hopefully, where you can learn 2D animation. And of course, we have all the old stuff on there. I've made a lot of interviews at previous conferences and festivals. So if you're into this kind of stuff, just browse around on our YouTube channel, browse around on the website, and you will find a lot. Like, I love storytelling, so I have some interviews with Craig Caldwell, for example, about storytelling. Yeah, please, if you're new, browse around and you will probably find some interesting content. All right. I hope you're doing well in these difficult times, and I hope to see you again in one of these live streams and discuss more stages of animation with you. Raul is asking if I have any quiz for 2D animation from scratch to dialogue. Well, that is the plan. At the moment, the 2D course is still at the scratch part. We're still at the very basics, the basics of animation, the principles, the work technique, workflow, and I will release more and more videos in that course. It's actually a series right here on YouTube too. You can start watching that. It starts with the principles, and it will eventually go all the way to animating full scenes with dialogue and stuff like that. I just need a little more time to complete that. That being said, if any of you guys want to support me, please also consider buying my tutorials, buying the merch. We have a cool cup. I don't have it here. Great advertisement I'm doing here. But anything you purchase on Animator Island really helps me to focus more on Animator Island, do more tutorials, do more live streams like this. And I would feel very honored if you choose to support me in that way. I also have mentoring. Maybe that is interesting for some of you. Let me put the link on the screen. It's animatorisland.com/mentoring. You can even hit me up for a free 15-minute consultation where we can talk in Skype just for 15 minutes about anything you want. That could be your story. We could discuss your story. Or if you have an animation that you want me to analyze or help you with, or just have a question. There is live mentoring where we will have a Skype call, and there's also video critiques where you just send me your animation and I have a look at it, scribble over it, and help you to improve. Oh God, I'm really getting tired here. 2 hours. That's more exhausting than I would have thought. Thank you guys so very much for staying with me here to the end, and I hope you have a great, fantastic day, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for your wonderful questions, and goodbye. Take care.